This video review was brought to you by PlayAsia. Check out the physical limited edition release of the isometric shooter Blue Rider, now at PlayAsia.com. Historical fiction never looks so damn good. I'm Michael Jordan, this is Niche Gamer's video review supplemental for Nioh. Every aspect of the visual design is amazing, be it on PlayStation 4 or a pro unit you are playing on. The level of detail is superb and Team Ninja knows it, giving the player options to take a look at character models as well as yokai models in greater detail via a virtual journal. Maps are beautiful and rich, laying out the land of 1600s war-torn Japan in crisp clarity. Armor and weapons are unique and interesting, giving the player the ability to customize the look and feel of their character via haircuts or even changing the models of weapons and armor they're using now with ones they've collected in the past. Gameplay can be hit or miss for some aspects of the game. Even before release, Nioh was pushed as a quote-unquote Souls-style game, but it doesn't have the major characteristics of a Soul game, which boils down to polished and well-defined controls. If you die, that is your fault, not the fault of the game. Too often do skills just don't work, or there's no clarity at which point you should use them to make them work. Even the key spell that you use and they've advertised as a way to dispel impurities that you are told in the beginning of the game will be useful ends up being of no use later on down the line. For one simple reason. The timing of it just isn't clear enough. There's no well way to define it unless you're actually looking at your key bar, which represents your stamina in the game. On top of this, Nioh's skill system leaves the player with a huge set of options which mostly do nothing for the player because Team Ninja has arbitrarily decided to make those skills worthless or useless in the context of the greater game world. But if you play the game like a Soul-style game, foregoing most of the skills available altogether, the game becomes a much more enjoyable experience all around. The armor and weapon system is left up to random number generation, similar to action RPGs such as Diablo 2. While the abilities are random on items, there are named items with set bonuses that you can get on them. The problem with this is that players will need to learn to abandon gear quickly to keep up with the current level of the mission they are in, or else risk being one-shot by hidden enemies and traps. This is extremely self-defeating when it comes to gathering gear and sets that ultimately work together because it ends up working against you the longer you hold on to those items. The soul matching system that they added to the game to remedy this ultimately is self-defeating unless you want to spend hours upon hours grinding out currency. I was able to go through the whole game without earning enough money to upgrade one of the basic items that I wanted to keep with me throughout the game that I was lucky enough to find early on. At that point, you're just better on giving up on the item and just finding another item that is close to it but not as good. Even if you got lucky that one time, it is ultimately useless in the long run. Sound, music, and even voice acting is great in this game. Strong characters with personality shining through without being overly campy outside of the main antagonist, who is gleeful in the destruction that he is able to cause. It is truly impressive just how well the sound design is done in this game. The story is one of the best works of historical fiction I've seen in quite some time, having deep wells of info on yokai characters and spirits of the time period, making the world spring to life, entwining our own as it does so. Characters will find themselves in the boots of William, a Scottish sailor after his lost spirit that's been a companion with him his whole life, based on the historical Western samurai William Adams. The main antagonist of the game is Edward Kelly, who in real life and the game was an alchemist obsessed with the occult and known for his close ties with Queen Elizabeth I, as well as his flamboyant nature. Along the way, you'll meet an assortment of historical figures from the Sengoku era, which ultimately leads to an alternate path to the Tokugawa shogunate of the time. The story alone is well worth the more punishing aspects of the combat and systems that they have in place with this game. Nioh is a near-perfect game that was dragged down by what can only be described as inflations of difficulty proven by the way that they marketed the game. The game is still amazing, but it really throws much of its potential core mechanics out the window, which can be frustrating to anyone who took the time to invest in them. Once you get past that issue, the game takes you on an amazing journey throughout Japan, filled with lore, action, intrigue that most players have never experienced before. It is well worth the early frustration that the gameplay presents you with, as well as your hard-earned money. Be sure to pick this one up. Thank you for watching this video review. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and if you want to help us out, feel free to check out our Patreon page.